Welcome to part 2 of Oneness and Wellness, and our guest, Lorraine Goldbloom. Nice to have you with us, Lorraine, and of course, my dear friend Marcia. And she's been telling us, she's been adding a little to our presentation, which is great. So we want to start with Lorraine, and we want to talk about presence and the awakening. And we were off camera talking, had a great conversation. We really should have filmed it.
Wish you were here.
Right, exactly. So tell us a little more about that.
No, we were just talking about presence, and presence is kind of the point. It's what we're always struggling to get back to, right? And our issues and our conditioning and our drama and our stories keep us out of being present. That's why I said earlier my definition of an issue is anything that keeps you out of being present. So with Vortex Healing, we have tools to go after those issues, to kind of clear the decks, right? Get this out of the way and recognize I am not my fear, I am not my anger, I am not my pain. And then what's left is what was always there, right? Is everything that's happening in the moment, and you can allow yourself to be really present and see the truth of what you are and the truth of everything that's happening in the moment. It's not trying to go somewhere or get something. It's being present enough to embrace what's already here. And I think that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for the presence that's already here. Right. And that's awakening.
And the freedom to be able to engage that with awe and gratitude and joy. We can't do that in curiosity.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, and another point that comes to me is when you have other people around you who have some understanding of what you're saying, makes it just elevates everything. But when you have people who are naysayers, negative, and debunk everything, it can affect you also.
Sure. Well, I teach in New York, so I expect a healthy amount of skepticism. And I'm a fan of skepticism. I don't see any reason why someone should just take what I'm saying and be like, yes. To me, there's a difference between skepticism and cynicism. Skepticism is throwing something past your own, what feels right. Cynicism is when you've closed your heart. So if you're willing to open your heart and just sort of take in, that's something different. When I'm doing my presentations, which is what I usually do, I talk about Vortex Healing, and then I offer a group healing, because that's the best way to talk about it, is to give someone an experience of it. I know the people who will be interested because they're nodding at everything I'm saying, not just because they're agreeing with me, but because they already know.
Yeah.
They don't need me to tell them. I'm giving it a context, I'm giving it a structure, but I know the people who are interested in this path because they're already on their own. And so when we talk about presence, people know what I mean. It's not strange, it's not a new age idea. People get it. And so those are the ones who are interested. And it's a wonderful community. It's a wonderful international community of people who are doing this and all kinds of wonderful awakening work out there.
Right. Well, now something you just said now, I clicked a little, New Age. This is not New Age. No. This is old age,
yes,
right?
Yeah. The lineage itself dates back to India, 5,600 years ago. It's been sort of taught in this way in the past 20 plus years, where it's sort of taught in this structure where people come and take classes. What happens in a Vortex Healing class is that people come and they receive, I was talking earlier about the idea of a transmission, where students receive through the teacher system what we call the vortex wheel. And then this becomes the bridge for the divine presence. And then you have your tools, and then you have your tools to work on your issues. You have your energetic tools and your consciousness tools. And then we practice. We practice going after issues. We also, can do work with bringing in equality, just opening a system to compassion or bringing peace to the system, because part of what we need to do is to feel safe. If we don't feel safe, it's very hard to work on our issues, you know. But if we're in a context where we have a sense of where this is going, that everything we need is already there, then nothing is unworkable. You know, an issue, no matter how painful, no matter how horrible, no matter how heartbreaking, if it is also an expression of the divine, if it's seen as sort of a path to bring us back home, then it's also a gift. So, yeah, so working with this work brings you back to that. It gives you tools when we need them. But everything in Vortex Healing is designed to bring you back home to where you already are.
I like the idea of the wheel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, it's circular.
It's circular, and it's a bridge. And I love the nature of the lineage, where you don't go out to some realm somewhere to access the divine. It's the divine shows up here in our hearts, where the wheel sits in a very particular way, because it's designed to bring us back in. You know, what we need is already there. And so the whole structure of it is to bring us back in, where we can explore our issues and our conditioning in a safe, loving environment. We have incredibly powerful tools. And that's where the skepticism gets dealt with, because the work works. Right. You know, and you know, I hate to say, you know, we're going for results, but aren't you kind of?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're in pain,
Oh,
don't
absolutely.
you? And so when the work works, and we have all those, you know, wondrous, you know, stories that we have in Vortex Healing, that's the beginning. But it's not just the fact that it does work, it's how it works. And that it works through not just blasting or releasing conditioning, it works through awakening the separation consciousness that holds it together to bring us back home. So yeah, you know, the structure is that, and then from the basic class, you're able to, of course, work on yourself, but you work on other people, you can work at a distance, you know, from the very basic training. And we were talking about magic earlier, you know, it's very magical lineage. You can clear spaces, you can clear food, you know, all of that, because the divine presence that's Merlin, you know, is the nature, the magical transformation, recognizing the magic in everything.
One of the things I love about this particular school is the invitation is constant from you. Yeah. As far as, where do you want to bring magic into your life? Yeah. Well, where don't you? You know, sitting down and eating a meal without thinking about it is one thing. Sitting down in the meal and really inviting this to be that which was created divinely, and everything else leave. Let's just return to divine design and bless it. You know, that's a wonderful way.
It's a wonderful way to live.
Yeah.
You know, in the moment, day to day. Yeah. For sure. You're going to have a different, you know, it's like being in the eye of the hurricane, because the hurricane is all around us. We know that, you know, the whole world is like topsy-turvy, but you can be in that eye and be fulfilled and be at ease and whole.
Be
and
free.
And free. Freedom, that's right.
And then there's that awakening, that realization, and then there's the living from that,
yes.
You know, the embodiment of that, where it's not just an idea or another story that we're all one. We're all one could just be another story if it's just a mental construct. But when you're living from that, when you're always being present and you're seeing the magic of everything that's happening around you, because you're not distracted by the noise and the chaos of your issues, and you can rest in that, then it's everywhere. And then you don't need to look for it anymore. Then there's no need for a seeker, because it's everywhere.
So, and I'm not going to get off subject, because what you're telling is just perfect. But there's so much chaos, and it comes in many different ways. It comes, you know, it comes with political stuff that comes through the television, the internet, the social media, all of the stuff that we're pummeled with, you know, and it takes people away from what you're talking about, really getting back to who am I, who are we, and you know, and freeing ourselves from the issues that torment us.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, you know, we talk about, how do you find peace in this chaotic world? How do you not get pulled into that? It's only by sort of realizing the truth of what you are and what that all is, you know, from that place. you can see it all as sort of a divine play. Now that's not so easy to do when you're threatened, but and issues are real, and these times are difficult, and it's scary out there, and that is a completely rational response. But when you have this realization, and you have the safety that comes with it, and you don't see it as separate, you're not in conflict with it anymore.
Right. Exactly.
You know, you're not in conflict.
Just your talking, Lorraine, and Marcia, what you're contributing, I'm excited.
Yeah.
It gives me a rush of energy, a rush of feeling, and
Rush of possibility.
yeah, it's so wonderful. Sometimes I get pulled in a different direction. So to sit here and to hear you describing that, and with Marcia giving her, a little addition to it, really is wonderful. It's very fulfilling.
It's a very joyful process. Yes. And joy to me, my personal definition, is joy isn't so much as an emotion, but it's a recognition of grace. Yes. When you have that presence to look around you, it's a thing, the jaw drops. You're like, I can't believe that. What was stuck and stagnant and dead is suddenly moving and fluid, and the joy, the wonder, the awe, the curiosity of that, that's joy. So, a vortex healing class in life it's very joyful because you're becoming aware of that movement that's there all the time. We just don't see it because we get bogged down in our issues, and our issues are noisy and they're chaotic and they pull us into contraction. But, if we could put that down, just create a little space and freedom so that we can be present with what's really going on, then the joy is already there.
One of the things that is, I think, very important when we talk about all this information coming as far as mass media goes, if it feeds my fear, I say thank you very much, and I walk away. Because I don't need my fear being fed. I can do that all by myself. Sincerely,
You
truly.
got plenty, thank you.
Yeah, truly.
I had fear for lunch.
Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. Which gives me an opportunity to be able then to choose differently, to not get caught up in. No, thank you, I have enough.
Yeah. And also, I think it's how you can meet that fear. If you can, whatever fear there is, if you can meet it from this safe place, this place of presence, and then fear is workable. Yes. You say, okay, thank you for that. I'm realizing something that's going on here, and now we have the tools, because vortex healing is a very powerful healing modality. It brings you tools, but then you realize that the healing and the awakening are one and the same. So when I talk about vortex healing, I describe it and I demonstrate it like a healing modality because it functions as it. But how it works is it brings that space to meet our fears and that issues. It's the lineage, the power of it is about awakening. And that brings us back to presence. Presence really is the master healer. So yes, the world around us is scary, we have fear, but then we can also meet it and just recognize it for what it is.
The point being that you don't feed the fear.
Yeah.
When it's recognized, I have tools.
Right.
Let
You
me
have
make
the
a difference
tools.
here, which is very different than sitting there and being immobilized by more and more fear.
More and more fear.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
You run to your tools
Right.
because they work.
Well, and we all need tools. We need tools. And, it's interesting, too. You hear a lot of language about living in the moment, being in the moment. I don't think people really understand what that means. And I think it's very different, the moment that you're talking about, than something just saying, now I want to be in the moment, Well,
the whole energy system, the body and energy system is actually, it's a path of experience. It's not as much of a machine, but it's a path of experience for the divine to experience itself in separation, and that's beautiful. From our point of view, when we're identified with our issues and we suffer, it doesn't seem so beautiful. But that's because we're in a very closed, shut-off place. But when we begin to recognize that, and that the issues are also divine expression, And we begin to have the space and the freedom to look at our fear and our stuff, our physical, all of that, and drop the language, I am afraid, and just say, oh, I have fear going on in my system. You know,
Language is so different, and it makes a world of difference in who you are and how you live. The language, that's very true.
And our language reflects our identification with that. Yes. You know, using the words, I am angry, I am sad, that reveals how, not just that we have pain, it's bad enough that we have pain, but when we identify with it, then it's a problem. I would imagine that the most God-realized being, if he would or she would come in and do an interview with you, if they have a body, they're going to know pain. You know, if they come in and stub their toe, the body will know pain.
That's right.
What they won't do, probably, I would imagine, was that they wouldn't go into a story about how they're a person in pain, and what I would do is, oh, I stubbed my toe on camera, I look like an idiot. You know, that all those stories that get created. The drama.
Yeah, the drama that comes with it. Well, we have to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you.
His congratulations to Oneness and Wellness. This is the 150th show. Yay, it's right. And here's to the next 150.
Welcome back to Oneness and Wellness. We're here with Marcia Reddington-Lawton, my good friend, and with our guest, Lorraine Goldbloom. So welcome again back. And we're talking, it's been great. Off camera is really good too. I think we should be filming that because...
a really good time.
Yeah, it's really, we're talking about a lot of interesting things, and I'm learning. So you can learn too. Pay attention. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what is the next step we want to talk about? We want to talk about the class. And
who comes?
And who comes to the class?
Who comes to Vortex?
That's a great question. Who comes to Vortex? We actually get all types.
Yes.
All different backgrounds and levels. I mean, when I started taking classes, the people who were drawn to it were people who were interested in having a healing practice and doing this work, because it's very practical, it's very effective, and all of that. But we're seeing a bigger variety now. I think there are a lot of people who are coming not as much for the tools, but for this awakening element. Because awakening is in the global consciousness. There are many wonderful teachers out there talking about what we're talking about, and it's not so strange anymore. So there are a lot of people who, like I said, the people who nod when I talk about awakening, because they already know they're coming to class and they're very interested in carrying on through all the different classes. And then, you know, there are also people like me, when I came to class, I didn't even know why I was there. I had a friend who took it and he had a good time. It's like, oh, that sounds interesting, I'll try it. And I just really enjoyed being there. And I thought it was interesting, and like you, I liked learning, and it was a long time into my vortex healing studies. I was just there for the joy part of it. Right. And then, you know, slowly things revealed. I had no sense that I was going to be a practitioner, much less a teacher. And I'm glad that I didn't, because then, given my type A Virgo personality, I would have tried to master the work and get it right. And if you could do such a thing with divine, but we imagine we do. And then there are people who are just there to enjoy and be curious, and that's great too.
And you must have people that come with an issue that pertaining to illness.
Absolutely, you know, of course, and I think that goes across the board. You know, we want to be free from our pain and our issues, so of course, and get tools to do that.
And do you kind of keep some kind of a record of people who say, this is what's happened to me? And
oh, sure, we have a wonderful community.
Right.
You know, we have an international community. I teach classes on the East Coast, but classes are taught, you know, as well on the West Coast, and in London, and in Holland, and in Finland, and Argentina, Belgium, you know.
Amazing.
So it is amazing, and to have that kind of support where people come together and work with each other and share their experiences and have this very conversation in different ways is a wonderful thing. And I think the world is waking up.
The world is waking up. And it's interesting that other countries, you know, South America, Europe, that they seem to be, I mean, Americans think that we're first in everything, but I'm a little bit dubious about that. I think that there's so much interest in other countries.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Our European classes are big, wonderful communities. I just taught in Holland recently. It's a fantastic community. And it's not so strange. It's actually, the energetic healing thing is far more mainstream in my experience than it is in the U.S. In many countries. So it's actually not so bizarre.
Well, and to know that everything is energy. You know, there's energy, it's in us, it's around us, and, you know, so I don't know. I don't know if they're doing any studies, you know, that are scientifically based, you know, on the brain and what happens to the brain. Do you doing any of that?
Through Vortex Healing, there have been certain things, you know, there have been some work in genetic consciousness, and Rick Wyman, our founder, talks about an experiment with fruit flies and creating, you know, watching the change happen through different generations, and then there are just people's, you know, miracle healing stories where you know, I love to work with medical science where someone, you know, has a test. We do a session, they go back and have the same test, and the numbers change. You know, this doesn't need to be separate from the mainstream. You know, you work with, we have doctors and nurses as students using this work and loving it.
I think that's one of the reasons why Vortex in particular is a school that stands out, because there's many wonderful schools out there and not so wonderful schools. Again, we're responsible for our own discernment.
Yeah.
Is that when you realize how everything is created on an energy level. Bottom line, energy, energy, energy. And you find a school that can inform you, remind you, help you remember what you already know and give you tools to work with. You're very much drawn to it. Vortex has an unusually strong reputation in the field of healing because of the power of the tools and the outcome that people and practitioners are experiencing.
You know, one thing we do, it sounds silly, but it's a bit of a miracle, is that we'll do a sort of mini healing on a musical instrument. Yes. You know, something that has no skepticism or, right. You know, and so, you know, do chart the sound first, do a mini healing, chart the sound after, and you can see the difference in the map. And so on a level, it's a party trick, but it demonstrates that the work works.
Exactly.
And of course, if you can change the sound of a musical instrument, you can affect this.
Right. So, you know, we want to keep doing this because I think there's more that we can explore with this. I know that are you going to be teaching a course locally?
I hope to, yeah. I think we have a community that wants to grow. So I would love to come back and do more work locally.
Well, before we finish this session, I want you to give your contact information to our viewing audience.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, as I said, Vortex Healing is an international community. You can look at the main website, www.vortexhealing.org, or my website for classes locally, East Coast, www.LorraineGoldbloom.com. And that website will have information about local events and those, you know, free healings that I do so people can actually have an experience of it.
Wonderful. So, Marcia, we're going to do it again.
We're going to,
okay.
The dance continues.
The dance
and
continues.
You're all invited.
That's it. And we'll be joyful dancers. So, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, viewing audience. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.